going to go ahead and get started. So I've hit the record button so that everything that we talk about here and everything that we show, that will, as I said, we'll have a permanent record of that. And does everybody see the aerial photograph of the track where it says Lifecycle Cost Procurement Subcommittee on the bottom?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. Did it just change?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. That's a real good sign. Well, I'm just going to kind of step through this, and obviously in the Green Fleet Review Committee, we've got the two subcommittees, new technology implementation, which really is the discussion that you and I were having a second ago about that equipment list for the equipment managers group, really kind of falls into that in that category under new technology. The meeting today, this web meeting, hopefully everybody is aware, is Lifecycle Cost Procurement. And then we've also got an inventory working group that's not an official subcommittee, but does quite a bit of work. So you always like to give it a nod. But as I said, this is Lifecycle Cost Procurement. And what I wanted to do today, and I think I alluded to this in the email that I sent out late on Friday about this meeting today, and I apologize for that going out so late again, but I was in North Carolina last week working. The purpose is just kind of go through the history of where we are up to this point. Ron Pruitt, who is on this line, who was talking to me just a minute ago, for those of you who might not know, Ron is the chairman of this subcommittee. I'm the chairman of the Green Fleet Review Committee. Stan Trott is the vice chairman of the Green Fleet Review Committee. He's also on this line. And Ron is going to continue as the chairman of the subcommittee at least until we get implementation of the passenger vehicles and the heavy equipment framework for life cycle cost procurement. And then my understanding of Ron's view is that when we move on to the purchasing of other items, non-fleet type stuff, then he wants to hand that off to somebody else, but he's willing to stay with it for the time being. Is that accurate, Ron?
Yeah, and we'll try to look at what we can do with our heavy truck chassis fleet too. We'll try to come up with something on that too.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. Well, just to kind of recap, there's 13 official volunteer members of this subcommittee, but there's no limit on the number of members. So anybody who wants to contribute is welcome to do that. 13, our experience is that's a good number. Somewhere in the teens is a good number to keep a good productive interaction going. We haven't had any meetings yet in the current fiscal year, so this is our first meeting in this fiscal year. To update on the work that Ron and the subcommittee have completed, they do have a framework complete for passenger vehicles. They also have a framework complete for other vehicles, which could include heavy-duty vehicles. And then we hadn't done any work yet to speak of on other product purchases, which may involve a new chairman, as we said just a minute ago. In order for us to implement, thinking about the two frameworks that are complete, and that was a result of meetings that we had in the previous fiscal year, and then the distribution of final documents and feedback and revisions by Ron in his office there. In order for us to be able to implement this at the beginning of the next fiscal year, which is fiscal year 2013, we do have to get this thing in to purchasing by this April. So that's our working deadline is this April to get the framework in place, or frameworks in place.
Buzz, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I just got off the phone with Susan just to make sure she knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And she made it very clear April is the deadline to work out any kinks. So
okay.
She's as big as Ron on this. We've got to make sure this works when we turn it in. And of course, Ron's been doing it for a long time, so I'm sure they know and understand the paperwork and all that stuff. But it's a different way of doing things. So
right.
Susan is well aware. She's in a meeting, so she couldn't jump on. But I had to say that about that April deadline.
Okay, I appreciate that, Stan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the way this has been laid out before us, it's a three-step process, and we started with the passenger fleet, and then we moved on to quote other vehicles, which can include heavy equipment, and then the last step, which is a big step, is non-fleet product purchases. Of course, with vehicles, we already have a system in place for vehicles, and what we're talking about doing is really adapting that process to life cycle cost principles, and it's fairly defined because it's all vehicles. But when you get out into other products, that's a huge scope. So we hadn't gone there yet, but that's the third step. So we're going to today talk about the first two steps, and that's really the first two steps really are what we would like to get implemented and get in place, get to Susan in April, so we can go ahead and get that going. Well, the way the passenger fleet framework is set up, and Ron, this is kind of my Reader's Digest view of the document that came out of your subcommittee that was back last December. I'm going to go through a list of the factors that figure into the life cycle cost equation that then becomes the basis of the award. Really, what we're talking about doing here for anybody who might not be totally clear on it at this point because it's been so long is instead of having specifications submitted and then picking the vehicle that just meets the specifications at the lowest possible purchase cost. Purchase cost factors in the life cycle cost, but it's just one parameter that figures into the decision making process. So that's number one on our list here. The first term that factors in is the purchase price that meets the specifications that are set up for the vehicles, for various classes of vehicles. The life cycle assumption that we built into this is 5 years or 55,000 miles. So that's our analysis period for the ownership and the use of the vehicle. Maintenance costs also factor in filters and parts over the life cycle, 5 years or 55,000 miles. Those are anticipated maintenance costs. Fuel usage, and we refer to fueleconomy.gov or using the current average for fuel, based on the assumed duty cycle, kind of a generalized duty cycle, to factor into the life cycle cost analysis. And that's kind of a good example of how you may be able to justify a higher initial purchase price for a vehicle that gets a lot better fuel economy because of the way the fuel use over the life of the vehicle factors into the life cycle cost comparison. We have a 60,000 mile tire life mileage rating requirement. Essentially, to kind of move that out, you're not going to have to plan on putting tires on a vehicle that you're going to keep for 55,000 miles if it's got a 60,000 mile tire life rating. We built in a bumper-to-bumper warranty, 3 years or 36,000 miles. We looked at many different warranty lengths and possibly specifying different warranty requirements, and where we ended up was 3 years and 36,000 miles for bumper-to-bumper. But the drivetrain warranty is a 5 year, 100,000 mile transferable warranty. And then the salvage value is the NADA salvage value at the end of the life cycle. So you have a number that you can calculate if 4 different vehicles are bid based on the specifications that are submitted. There a series of calculations encompass all of these factors to come up with a dollar value that represents the life cycle cost of a vehicle based on all of these assumptions.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Ron and our Buzz, what was the discussion on this 5 year, 100,000 mile warranty? That's going to put some people with a lot of question marks. How's that going to work? I'm sure Susan knows this, but I'm not privy to it.
My memory of that, and Ron can chime in after me, was that we wanted to have essentially a transferable warranty. I believe would build into the salvage value of the vehicle at the end of at the end of the life. So it would provide a better return, a lower life cycle cost from a higher salvage value. Is that correct, Ron?
Yeah, that's correct. And it would also give a warranty for agencies that want to keep a vehicle, say 100,000 miles, then they would have warranty on any major repairs.
Hey, listen, trust me, you know, if we can pull this off, that's great. I just got a feeling, unless you know something different, that's going to, you know, you're going to have some big boys out there going, you know, how are we going to do this? So
Well, it's all available.
they're just going to put the price into this, or for, you know, if they only go 36 or whatever it is now for most of them, they would include that in the price and give you a transferable warranty.
That's right.
So
This is Mike Harper. What I remember too is that some of the manufacturers are going to 5 years and 100,000 miles as their standard.
Well, we know Hyundai's got the advantage there, but I can tell you, you know, there's just a question. I don't know how many are, you know, Mike, you're probably right. I'm not on top of that. I just, when I saw that one, I went, wow, is that a wish or is that doable?
I was thinking some of the American manufacturers are doing the same thing too, like
Okay.
Dodge. Some of them,
Right.
I believe I'm right on that. That some of them are. Some of them may still have the old 5-year, 60,000 miles, but
Right.
they can price that change in so that everybody's on the same playing field.
Well, you know, since
You
we've
guys
had the
know this
meeting-
better than I do. I'm
Since
sorry.
we've had the meeting, there's several now that's going 10 years and 100,000 miles.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, I had to ask that question because that's huge if we can get that. You're right. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do with that, whether it's another agency or whether it's a customer or whatever client.
But in order to level the playing field for major manufacturers that want to bid on these vehicles, they can add 5 years or 100,000 miles even if it's not a standard. Is that correct?
Right.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So how does that translate to implementation? Because what we really want to do, and Ron and I talked about this some just between the two of us last week, and he gave me some really good feedback on some of the ideas that I had, and how we really want to make conventional vehicles and alternative vehicles available for purchase as a function of the duty cycle. You know, for a vehicle that's going to be the example we all use, a vehicle that's going to be stop and start driving around town running errands. A hybrid vehicle might be the lowest life cycle cost, but a vehicle that's going to be spend a lot of time on the road driving distance, a conventional vehicle might be the lower life cycle cost. And we don't want to award the contract all to conventional. We want to leave it open so that we can implement some alternative vehicles, the right number of alternative vehicles into the fleet, whatever gives us obviously the lowest life cycle cost. So how I see this working is being a two-tiered decision-making process. Purchasing, when they get this, for a vehicle that is specified, they award the contract to two vendors, a conventional drivetrain vendor, I'll say, and an alternative drivetrain vendor, and then the fleet managers select the conventional versus alternative based on the actual duty cycle. So in the case of the DOT, Ron would have two choices to make, either the conventional or the alternative, and then he'll look at the use of the vehicle and select the vehicle for purchase that is the right one for the application, the one that gives the lowest life cycle cost based on the fuel that is expected to be consumed in the life cycle of the vehicle. Now, this process would be specified in everybody's green fleet plans, all agencies and departments, and everybody would be provided with a spreadsheet as a tool for making that final selection, where qualified agencies or departments can make their own selections, like Ron with the DOT or anybody else who can be qualified as having the level of management to do that. But for agencies and departments that are not qualified, all of the selections will be made by the Office of Fleet Management when the Office of Fleet Management becomes active at the state level as it's envisioned to be. So the kind of the cats that are out there that have to be herded in all the peripheral departments and agencies all of the final selection, that lower tier decision is going to be made by the Office of Fleet Management. Does anybody see a reason why that's not a process that would work? Awkward silence. In this manner, really, the purchasing level process is going to work exactly the same way, except instead of making one award, they're going to make two awards. Instead of a department specifying the drivetrain, the department would specify I guess the class of drivetrain that they would want, horsepower, whatever, and then there'd be a conventional award, and then there'd be an alternative award. And the alternative award, the cheapest, based on the assumptions, the lowest life cycle cost might be an electric vehicle, or it might be a hybrid vehicle. It just depends on how the numbers worked out. But then none of the fleets would be forced to purchase the hybrid vehicles or the electric vehicles, if it still makes good business sense for you to get all conventional vehicles based on your actual duty cycles as opposed to the assumed duty cycles that are the basis of the dual awards in purchasing. You can get the vehicles that you want in order to complete your mission, which really is what we want to do, is green the fleet, but not compromise the mission of the fleet, the mission of government and the various departments and agencies.
This is huge. Hey, Ron, how do you think the other fleet managers will react to this?
Well, as long as they can still get, the vehicles that they need to do their job. But the way the system's set up is we got conventional vehicles, and then we actually, for one contract, and then we have another contract that is alternative fuel contract.
Right.
And I assume that, and I guess what you're saying, Buzz, is we'd actually set a spec up for a conventional vehicle, and then we'll turn around for that same size vehicle, let's say, and we'll just use the Impala, and then we'll set up one where if there's a hybrid vehicle out there that's about that size, then we can look at and try to get a hybrid on the alternative fuel contract.
Well, what I'm proposing initially, which this approach may need to be modified, but what I'm proposing is that you just set up a specification that's generic to whether it's conventional or alternative, as generic as it can possibly be, and then there'll be two awards. One, you'll still have one conventional and one alternative, but you'll have one set of specifications, and then you'll make the decision to go with conventional or alternative based on your analysis at your level within your fleet.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is I'm saying the same thing you are, just in a different way. It'll still be set up with both of them will be on the contracts. You just choose which one you need for your particular.
That spreadsheet's going to come into play on that, right, Bud?
Yeah, the spreadsheet will be the selection tool, and you'll go into the spreadsheet and you'll say in that spreadsheet, well, this passenger vehicle is going to have to make trips to the divisions. It'll be, some percentage of miles on the interstate you may get this vehicle thinking, this particular vehicle, I'm probably going to keep it 80,000 miles, run so many thousands of miles a year, so many miles on the interstate, so many miles in town. I don't know what exactly the spreadsheet will look like, but we'll need to develop the spreadsheet in this subcommittee as a tool for this use. So purchasing would have two vehicles available to you. You'll plug your usage numbers into the spreadsheet, and then it will advise you to purchase whichever one, conventional or alternative, that gives you the lowest life cycle cost for the duty cycle that you enter in that spreadsheet.
Hey Buzz, this is Mike.
Yes, sir.
I agree with what you're saying as far as separating alternative fuels and conventional type vehicles. But I think within those two classes that we're talking about, there's going to be different vehicles needed in each one of those areas that will have to be specified as far as purchasing, so that you can have a class of vehicle or the vehicle that you'd want to use in all these different areas, like the hybrid as opposed to an alternative fuel which would use E85 or whatever. There may be two classes within the alternative fuel, or maybe more than that. And then if you get over into the conventional, people have needs for four-wheel drive vehicles, they have needs for pickups, they have needs for SUVs, they have needs for cars. So there's going to be a lot of different groups within these two major classifications that you're talking about to purchase by. So
well, and
that's where
I think we're on the same page, Mike, because like what I'm imagining is, you know, I keep using the easy example of a passenger car that runs around town versus one that runs on the interstate, but the same thing would be true for example, for like an SUV. You can get hybrid SUVs now. So I mean, I'm not suggesting something that's not as complex as it needs to be. I'm just suggesting something that doesn't need to be any more complicated than it needs to be. You know, it just.
I agree. I think two different classifications is where we need to be, but there'll be different subsets of those classifications that you'll have to make available for choice, like you said, which would make it make sense for that fleet and that operation to provide something that's the lowest life cycle cost. I agree with everything you're saying, and I'm just kind of expanding beyond probably where we need to get right now. But
well, and this
I
is
absolutely agree, Mike. And what I like about this, and I'm glad we got over to this is the main way we're going to green the fleet. I mean, at least there's an option there now to do that. There's a process. There's a way to do this, and I absolutely understand, and it's good to hear that. There's going to be different subsets based upon, especially at the DOT or forestry or wherever, I'm sure, where there's going to be different kinds of vehicles needed. But at least now there's an option for us to start implementing and driving more fuel-efficient vehicles into the state fleet. That's my opinion, anyway.
well, and I think our mission between now and April is to define it further. You know, we've got a good framework. I think the logic in the framework is really good, and by April, what we really need to have is a good solid proposal for an implementable system, including this spreadsheet tool that would be used at the fleet level to make the decision between the type of drivetrain that's going to be in the vehicle that's been chosen for purchase.
Hey, Buzz, can I say something?
Yes.
Hey, this is Clay McKinnis for the group. Just going off of what Mr. Harper said. For our company, I just wanted to throw out an example on the overlap of the spreadsheets for usage of off-road vehicles or, you know, heavy equipment or things like that. I mean, there are some other options available. I know that the DOT or the state doesn't have a system set up in place right now, but for our company, for example, I make about 200 to 300 gallons a week biodiesel, and then I blend it in to huge tanks, stores 10,000 gallon tanks at our construction yard at very low levels, 5% below, which doesn't void any warranties or anything like that, and we're able to see some cost savings there, but it's also blended in with our fuel demand so that we're getting more efficient Ford diesels, for example, you know, 3500s, 1 tons, and things like that have biodiesel in them, and their warranties are actually, the new ones are up to 20% biodiesel you can put into the trucks. So we're seeing advantages there, and then not only that, we're seeing advantages in cranes and things like that we're doing. I know that's different from what we're talking about, but if you blend it at low levels, you can fill any diesel engine with that and still have cost savings.
Clay, who are you with?
This is McKinnis Construction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
we're going to have a group, just to give you a little heads up, we're going to have a group probably shortly set up out of the Green Fleet Committee on biofuels or alternative fuels.
Yes, sir. And, right. Hopefully I'll be part of that as well.
Right. That's all part of the big picture because, you know, there's a whole different ball game there when we start talking about biodiesel and ethanol and fuel efficiency and how that's going to work out into the state fleet. And so we're going to need that insight or that expertise to drive that also through the state and from the green fleet. So.
Sure. I just wanted to mention that so that you know that somebody out there is doing that currently right now. So
we appreciate that input, Clay.
Something else too, though, when you go to use a biodiesel, you've got to make 100% sure that you get one that's ASTM certified.
That's correct.
We got into a pretty good mess using biodiesel in the DOT.
Oh yes, sir. I'm familiar, and yes, that is a concern, and there are ways of doing that appropriately. So.
Well, and I think, Clay, if I understand what y'all do correctly, you're producing your own. So I mean, you know what your base oils are, and I mean, you know what your quality process is. When you're out there buying it on the open market, you got to have an assurance of quality.
Exactly.
Ron, Mike, I mean, you guys are the big guys, and you've seen it all, done it all. You've got the largest fleet. That's going to be a big thing driving forward, is working and looking at these alternative fuels and getting that over time implemented. So your insight, your issues and problems you've had, that's got to be addressed. But that's another big picture item. I can tell you, there's a lot of people that want to draw that industry to the state, and yet there's no market for it right now. The state has not really set a market and participated, and so that's something that's going to be coming in the future that I hope you guys will participate in. I'm sure you will, because you don't want to make any mistakes.
I was going to say, that's why it's so good to have them at the table, because you can't compromise the mission in trying to implement these things. We got to do them at the same time,
Well, we're still burning a lot of the E85. We've got 8 sites now, I believe, that we're using it on a daily basis.
That means you got a good baseline there on that too, right, Ron? As far as miles per gallon. I mean, there's a lot of people that complain about that as far as fuel efficiency.
Yeah, you'll lose 6 or 8 miles to the gallon at least.
Right. Now, how does that? Now, let me just throw that one out there, Buzz. If they're going to burn E85, is that going to be on the spreadsheet?
Well, we got to.
Your fuel efficiency is so much lower.
We've got to talk about how to include that on the spreadsheet, because it could, and then we've also got to talk about how that affects the mileage improvement targets that are built into the Green Fleet legislation. Because if
I'm telling you what, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. If
we're encouraging fleets to use fuels that are going to hurt their fuel economy, at the same time we're telling them we want them to make annual improvements of whatever percent.
Doesn't make sense.
That's mutually exclusive, So we've got to have a deliberate thought process going into it. Which, again, that's why it's good that we have fleets on board that are part of this that have experience under their belt, because they know what's going to happen on some of these things,
Yeah, and let me throw something else out here before we leave the hybrid vehicles. Now, you've got to drive these vehicles, 60, 75,000 miles sometimes before you see a benefit from, paying the extra money to get a hybrid vehicle. So that needs to also be taken into consideration. If a fleet is going to, say, keep a vehicle 100,000 miles, then they'll see a benefit from it.
Now that's where that spreadsheet comes into play, Ron.
Right. Well, I wanted to throw that out there, because like for us, if the way we turn them in, we'd never see a benefit from it. Matter of fact, we could end up actually losing money.
Well, now,
Ron, here would be my question to you. As many vehicles as y'all buy, but I can only assume if we do this right and we leverage the spend and the opportunity is there that's never been there before, wouldn't you think the price of the hybrids would come down? I mean, do you really know what the price is going to be if we put that out there as an option for the state of Alabama?
Well,
it's not a trick question. That's just my thought. We don't know what the price of these vehicles are going to be yet, because we've never honestly put them out there, have we? as an option on a contract for people to bid on?
No, I don't think we have a hybrid, no.
Well, but again,
So, I understand exactly, and I'll tell you the same thing for electric vehicles. I don't know how we will justify electric vehicles. It's got to be a special need. But this whole life cycle costing opens up a lot of opportunities for us, but we really don't know what the price of the vehicles are going to be when you put them out there for bid.
Yeah, but
Mike Harper, the things that to me, that our standard fleet management we do here may have to be altered for the electric or for the hybrid type vehicles, so that you've got an opportunity out there that would make financial sense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got infrastructure. Alabama Power, is this Mike?
5 and 5 years,
right.
of service with that we do with our standard fleet now. So those things are going to have to be decided at some point in time quickly to make a decision on whether hybrid vehicles for a fleet, what should be the criteria to bid it by?
But Mike, this dual award system with the local tool using actual duty cycle, I think this two-tiered system gives us a starting point for that, because you make the dual award based on these general assumptions of life cycle and use, and then at the fleet level you can go in and kind of fine tune it in order to make that the final selection about what type of vehicle that you want. So I like this framework because I think it gives us the flexibility to do that.
Are y'all working with any CNG, Ron or Mike?
We have made contact with Southern Natural Gas and their main, I forgot the name of the company that supplies a lot of the natural gas to Southern Natural Gas. But yeah, we've made contact and given them our fleet's usage and things like that to see if there's any advantage to us trying to move in that direction. But
right.
At this point in time, it looks like the fleets that would be, especially with the number of fueling stations that they've got around the state, that it makes sense for fleets something like transit, for fleets like sanitation, fleets that do a lot of mileage and usage on a daily basis. A lot of our fleet is sporadic because we don't travel the same road every day. We go to a closer site one day and we go to a further site another day, and most of our work is done in a division, which is a few counties. It's not all over the state. So we don't put a huge number of miles and usage on from a fuel standpoint like those other kinds of fleets that I'm talking about.
Right.
So
I think CNG and electric are going to be on a special
kind of a long story short, but I don't see right now that it's a big advantage or would be an advantage to us to do that. And they haven't come back and told us anything that would in our fleet that would be effective as far as cost for us. So, but we have
I'll give you a little.
We have had some discussions with them on several occasions.
I have a quick question. This is Clay. Does the DOT have any idling requirements as far as I've seen inspectors? I know that on a hot summer day, they've got to get outside of the heat sometimes. But as far as idling the fleet on a job site for a long extended period of time,
we do have an idling policy.
Okay.
We do. And I'm not saying this followed all the time. You've probably seen something that somebody that didn't, but we do have an idling policy, and hopefully most of our people are abiding by that policy.
Sure. I didn't know. I know, as a company or DOT exactly. I mean, we have an idling policy as well. Sometimes there's exceptions to the rule. Sometimes people break the rule and whatnot. I didn't know if there was one enacted in the DOT though.
Yes,
yeah,
we've got one that went out.
They've got to have a way to get warm. And like I say, in extreme heat, they got to have a way to get cool.
Sure, of course.
But when you're kind of in between, in the falls and the springs of the year, a lot of times is probably when it would be more effective.
Well, and to follow up on the discussion about CNG, my understanding is that Allegasco, within their fleet, they had to take a step back from CNG within their own fleet because of infrastructure limitations for travel distance and such. So, you know,
yeah, you got to hold. That's when you start talking electric and gas. You're talking about infrastructure issues too, which would be, you know, have to be addressed over time.
That's right. When Allegasco themselves have an infrastructure problem for sustainable travel over distance, that there's a strong message there.
Yeah, they've got, according to what they told us, this is Mike Harper again, they told us that there were 7 fueling places around in Alabama right now, I believe, and then another issue too is that with that compressed natural gas, that they're not allowed in certain parking decks and things like that, you know. So there's not only infrastructure as far as the fuel, there's issues with where you can drive that fleet too. So.
Right.
Well, they've asked to be on the Green Fleet Committee, guys. I'll tell you that right now, and we probably will lean that way, and so is Alabama Power. So yeah. we will fully we definitely will. I don't want to use the term hold their feet to the fire, but we'll have a better explanation over time as to where it's going to be available and if it's even an option. You know, Alabama Power, I think, really is working from an infrastructure issue. And for Southern Company, not necessarily a vehicle, but I think it will help us over time for both of them to be on the committee, and so we can all, you know, get input or give them input as to what the issues are.
Yeah, I agree with you. This Mike again, and I think it's a very viable source of energy for us to use. I think it's going to be limited for a period of time, but hopefully they'll work those issues out, and it'll become more of something we'll use.
Well, there's going to be an interest, and I think as long as, you know, over time, with now the collaboration between the DOT or all the fleets and the state agencies, maybe it'll grow. It'll give them. It'll show we're willing to work with it if they'll meet us on this on both of them. But you know, there's going to have to be a special need, you know, special situation for whatever it is, whether it's electric or CNG, to use it on. But again, it's just something that in the big picture we want to get out there and have that alternative option.
Yeah, the biggest thing that hurts the CNG is to get a fast fueling site is like $1.2 million per site. So that's what's hurting now. It costs so much to put in the infrastructure.
Yeah, the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the cost to you know, provide natural gas capabilities for one of our dump trucks is like, I think Ron told me $50,000.
Yeah, it's a $50,000 upcharge to get that on there, and then when you sell the vehicle, you know, that's an issue at that point in time too. So there's a lot of issues but hopefully, I think that's a very viable source of energy, and we need to come up with ways to use it.
Well, I think what I'd like to see, big picture, and I'm stepping all over Buzz. Buzz, I apologize. But in the future,
it's okay, Stan. I could mute you anytime I wanted to, so that's all right.
There you go. That's right. You do have that option. You know, I'd like to see public-private partnerships. I mean, you know, bring in private agencies to work with the public agencies, and over time, you know, we know and understand somebody's going to have to step up to the table on the upfront cost.
This is great discussion, but we're going to keep moving forward here, so we can try to wrap this thing up here in the next few minutes. But on the heavy equipment framework, the details that came out of that was, again, purchase price that meets or exceeds specification, and these are the factors that go into life cycle cost calculation. The life cycle assumption in this case is 5 years or 5,000 hours. Guaranteed repair costs was also included on the list. Scheduled maintenance costs, zero deductible full machine warranty, and the guaranteed salvage value, which could involve a performance bond. And we had good representation from private fleets the development of this. So, Ron, do we feel pretty good about the framework that came out for heavy equipment?
Yeah, as far as I know, we had representation with Caterpillar, which are, they've been on this life cycle cost pretty big now for several years.
Right.
And which is pretty well based off of what they already use. So.
Right. So the way these meetings are working, in case you weren't in the loop earlier, is every month we want to have a meeting to keep things moving, so that the Green Fleet Review Committee will be the first one in the rotation. Life cycle cost is second. New technology is third, and then we begin the rotation again. So I wanted to go ahead and schedule a March meeting, and ideally we need to have work done, and we need to have consensus on what's been done, because in March we're a month ahead of what we need to submit to purchasing in order to get anything implemented for the next fiscal year. So I'm proposing that we meet early in March. Would it be okay if we go ahead and lock in on March the 1st as our next web meeting for this group?
Sure.
And we're going to need to keep things moving and working and get towards having the official recommendation by this meeting, at least something that we can bounce around for an official review and okay before the April submittal deadline.
Well, when are you going to meet with the Green Fleet Committee to see if they're going to accept what we've got here?
Well, the next Green Fleet Review Committee meeting is not until February, but we're interacting with Representative Wren pretty continuously at this point in time with the committee. So I mean, we can work with him, we can work with them, we can work with purchasing as we go through this thing to make sure we don't get off on a tangent that's not feasible.
It'll be in place before March, trust me. And we've already got probably 4 to 6 that we're going to appoint or Representative Wren will appoint to the Green Fleet Committee.
Has Representative Wren, has he done seen this yet? Has he seen this, Buzz?
He has seen it, or at least his office has seen it, and I haven't gotten any pushback on anything that's been done so far. But
isn't that what you sent that Kristen was talking about this morning?
Yes.
They're fired up about it, Ron. They like what they've seen thus far.
So I guess then we need to, we're going to have to put the forms and all together for purchasing to use also.
Right.
I think
we'll try to work on some of that and get some of that out to everybody.
that would be awesome, and as close as you can work with purchasing on this. On the front end, it'll be smoother for us on the back end to actually achieve the implementation that we want. So, I know that they were involved in the subcommittee work that led to these recommendations. So hopefully they'll continue to be that involved.
Yeah, Susan's made it clear she's got to have it by April 1st.
Yeah, I'll work real close with Susan.
All right. So are we good for March 1st? Can I go ahead and schedule that?
Yeah, that'll work for me.
All right. That was all I had today.
Hey, I got a question. Don't mute me, Mr. Chairman, please. I heard about your GPS. Are you guys using GPS?
Yeah, we are at the DOT.
How's it working out? I mean, that intrigued the heck out of me.
I think it's working well. I think you have to be selective in what your needs are.
Right. Is it mainly passenger vehicles? I mean,
we've got. I think the passenger vehicles we put it on some of our fleet, and probably one of the I guess from my standpoint, one of the places that it's doing a real good service for us is in our maintenance areas where our people are out on job sites and doing work, and the district manager is able to know where they are and keep up with what's going on, along with if he has something come up from an emergency type situation, he can call the person that's closest to that area to go take care of that specific situation. So it's a good tool. I mean,
Mike, what's the cost? What's the cost
you need it on every vehicle, but I think it's a good tool in some cases.
What's the cost on that, Mike?
Ron can tell you for sure. I think it's between $300 and $400 for the unit, and it's pretty close to that for installation, isn't it, Ron?
It's it's $350 for the box. Our mechanics install them, and takes about 45 minutes to install one. And then the service charge for real time is $32 a month.
Per vehicle?
Part of that is for the cell phone service, and then
Per
part of that goes to the software company that manages it, and the software system.
But Stan, I think you can also get a system where when the vehicle comes back to the parking lot, to the fleet yard, or wherever it is it's going to be parked, it can communicate. It can be standalone. It doesn't have to be cellular, and just communicate with the network when it gets back to the parking lot, so that it can be monitored if that is a primary purpose of installing it.
Right. You don't have to have real time, I guess, what you're saying, in it, Buzz. You can have that information downloaded into the system at specific spots.
That's right.
So
that's right. So
we're doing real time, and I question, whether we ought to be doing real time on everything. So.
Right.
Yeah, and I checked on ours too, Mr. Harper, and real time is all we can do with them. They can't do the passive.
Okay.
But the cell phone service is only about, I think it's about $11 or $12 a month is what I found, and it breaks down. But then the other company, the Axoff company, they've got a monthly charge also.
Okay.
So that it totals up to about $32 a month.
Yeah. Well, I think it is a good tool in certain cases. I mean, certain situations, it's a valuable tool for our efforts.
But one thing that I did do is I looked and just ran a statewide report on the on trucks and vehicles that would use the gasoline and E85. And I based it over 3 years, 2 years prior to, and then this last year that we used GPS, and we drove 1.1 million less miles and about, I think it was about 89,000 gallons of less fuel that we used last year.
So it's got a pretty good payback.
It does. We figure we're at least breaking even, or maybe a little bit better.
Does it keep up with mileage? Do you get a mileage number off of it?
You can, yes.
All that stuff. I don't know if the state could put it on everything, but remember gathering all that data for mileage, Ron, what a pain in the butt it is for everybody. I was just thinking about it.
That would be a benefit of it.
Real time. You can generate reports if you wanted to look at it daily or whatever.
Yeah, but when you've got that many to look at, it's.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
I've got the whole state on mine, and when you put it up for the whole state, it's you have to drill down to who you want to see.
Yeah, but I think it's good. Like I said, I think it's good for our lower level managers to help with keeping up with the work efforts that are being going on, and being able to react to specific job needs pretty much instantaneously.
One other thing we'll look at, Ron, let me ask you this. I know you've got 55,000 as far as your when you turn in your vehicles. Do you have a set utilization number for whether a person or whether a state employee justifies a vehicle that you use?
Yeah, we've just really came up with something. We have a minimum usage that we set up, and let's just take those vehicles as 900 and something miles a month. And so we got a report that we can run, and what Mr. Harper has chose to do, then we take vehicles that don't meet the minimum usage, And then if they fall under 50% of the minimum usage, then our question is, do they really need the vehicle? And
I'm telling you, that's huge, guys.
and so we're actually in the process of doing that, and Mr. Harper and myself, actually right after the first of the year, are going to visit each division and vehicles that fall in that category. We're going to have that discussion with them. So we're trying to right-size our fleet as best we can. And
but if you don't mind, please keep me in the loop on that. This whole inventory working group, I mean, obviously, you know, there's going to be that's going to be something that's going to be looked at as far as the state fleet itself and how many vehicles are really needed, and come up with some alternatives, whether it be leasing or whether it be set up mini, you know, motor pools. Now, you guys, I think, do you do that anyway, Ron? Do you have a motor pool for people to use?
we got one here at the central office, yeah.
Right.
And the division offices have a pool of vehicles too that they utilize. Something you have to be careful with, though, is your mission is your mission. And just for instance, if we've got a project going on and we have inspectors that go to that project office to report to work, and they go out on the project, and they're having to look after the work that's being done and ensure that it's done according to the contract and specifications. They don't put a lot of miles on those vehicles, so you can't relate everything just to mileage. You have to.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. I mean, it's going to be on an agency by agency basis.
That's right.
That's
right.
And that's
I just want that out. It's not just miles, and it's not non-usage. But we're going to what Ron and I are going to do is make sure that we understand that vehicle or that piece of equipment is actually needed, and if it's not, we're going to move to remove some of that equipment. And
Mike, that's big. I'm telling you, I love hearing that. That's big.
So Stan, let me just throw something out to you. Our extended cab pickup trucks that a lot of our project engineers and inspectors use,
right?
They on depreciation and replacement cost us $33.33 a month.
Right.
And you can't lease one a day for that. So.
Right.
Mhm. And a lot of our pickups that we've sold in our recent sales, we've got within $500, and it got more than what we paid for a few of them, but within $500 is probably the average of what we bought it for and used it for 5 years and sold it for. So
right.
Our program is working real well. So
good. No, the main thing is at least you guys have got a program going on to take a look at right sizing.
Yes, yes, we're going to do that.
Well, Ron, this is your subcommittee, so I guess I'm gonna hand everything over in terms of the meeting organization to you, and then I guess you can end it, or do you have any thoughts on how we need to manage the workflow between now and March?
Well, if Susan's going to need that by April, like I said, let me put some forms together. Amanda and I will work on that here, and maybe sometime after the first of the year we'll get something put together, send it out, and let everybody look at it. And of course, we'll get with Susan, Jana at purchasing, and we'll just try to put something together. And if it kind of looks good, we'll go with it. But some of the questions that we have and that I have too in my mind is actually we won't be able to answer some of those until we can have some pre-bid conferences with, when we bring the vendors in prior to them submitting their bids. And so that's when probably a lot of the questions and things like that will come up.
I think this is going to kind of be an iterative process, and we need to give it our best shot for a test drive in the next fiscal year, and then as we need to tweak it as we go along to optimize it, then we can certainly do that.
But I guess that's all I have.
All right. Well, I'm fixing to stop the recording and end the meeting, but I sure do appreciate everybody taking their time to participate, and we look forward to moving forward.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank y'all.
Have a good Christmas.
All right. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Clay.
Take care.
See ya. Bye.